I'm so pleased to introduce you to Mr. John Beule, who is a master at his craft.
Thank you, Ms. Beule. It's a nice spring day, boys and girls, and pretty soon you're going to be seeing all the birds come back to Wisconsin. In the next 6 weeks, you're going to see many, many, many birds come from the south, their winning grounds, and they're going to come through Wisconsin. Some will stay and nest. Others will probably go farther north where they nest. You'll have the opportunity, if you keep your eyes open and if you're interested in watching a lot of new birds that we haven't seen for a long time. But the best way, of course, is to take a pair of field glasses and observe the bird in the wild. Observe the wild birds. We should talk about wood a little bit because wood is important in this thing. You can't use oak and you can't use many of the woods that we find normally. We have to use a fine-grained wood, and we have to use wood that will not split. So we use basswood, which isn't common wood around here. We have basswood trees all over the place, but you can't go to the lumber yard and buy basswood, unfortunately. This is Tupelo gum. This is another wood that comes from the south. This comes from way down in Mississippi, Louisiana, those states. And it grows in the water, in marshes. It's that one of those trees that has this bulbous root system that comes way down. And this part of the wood is cut out from that section that almost lies in the water. I save every photograph of every bird that I can find. I'm about to make a flicker. That's going to be my next project. My wife wants a flicker, so we're going to make a flicker. Here's some pictures of flickers. I didn't bring all the pictures I have by any means, but just to show you that I need this kind of reference. Not only that, I know a flicker is 11 inches long. I know a flicker has a long bill, and after all this long curved bill and the curves down, and I know that they have stiff tails. I know they're in the woodpecker family. I know they spend a lot of time on the ground. I know they eat 45% of their diet is ants. They're the one woodpecker that eats ants. You see them sitting on the ground and just by an ant hole just gobbling up the ants. You don't know what they're doing, I'm sure, because you can't see that well enough, I'm sure. But next time you see a flicker on the ground, you can be sure it's eating ants. Anyway, after I thought I knew what I was doing, I started to draw some patterns. And this is the pattern. This flicker is going to be standing up a little different than these are coming out here, so I didn't draw a few down here, but this is the side view. This is the top view. And just before I came out here yesterday, I thought I'd put these on and cut out the thing so I could show you. So after we have this thing sculpted out the way we want it, then get this wood off of here, we have to get in the feather tracks. Well, I can show you the feather groups and feather tracks. Okay, I'll use this key. That's all right. There's all groups of feathers on various birds. These are the side feathers. Each duck has 12. Each bird has side feathers. These are nape feathers, back of the neck. The shoulder feathers continue onto the wing feathers, which are made up of the primary, the secondary, and the tertials. I can show you now better on this wing of a bird that I brought along. These are the primary feathers, or the primary flight feathers. The secondary feathers are here. These are the coverts that cover the secondary flight feathers. These are the tertial feathers. There are 4 of those. There's in a duck, there are 10 flight feathers, 10 secondary feathers. They vary in other birds. But these are the things you have to know if you're going to make a realistic bird. After you get all these details and get these feather groups into the the bird, then you have to draw individual feathers. For instance, this group of feathers here has so many other feathers, they're so wide, and you draw them in, and then you'll use a burning tool. Now this burning tools has a cord and plugs in. The end of these things are knife sharp. They get hot, and you can burn these little lines to make a feather look like a real feather. Oh yeah, well, this duck is just floating as ducks are supposed to float. If you can see here, there's a ring around this duck. This was a flat surface, of course, before, and what I did was take a drill, about an inch drill, and on a power tool, just a hand drill, and I just hollowed this whole thing out. This is a very hollow bird. And then, after it's hollowed, I put weights in there so it would float perfectly. Now when these things are judged, if you go to these competitions, this type of bird, this is a floating, decorative, or a realistic bird, and they have to float perfectly. If they list or go over to one side or the other side or something like that, or if the tail's up too far or the front end's up too far, they'll throw it out of the tank immediately. They just won't even consider it, no matter how well it's done otherwise. It has to float perfectly. So most all the ducks I do. Okay. So, but there's an interesting story to the woodcock also. Woodcock, in this particular position of the woodcock, is different. Woodcock live in the woods, and they're a woods bird, but light woods. I mean, not the deep, dark woods that we are associated with big trees. Small trees, second growth, this kind of thing. And in the spring, and I would suspect the woodcock are already here in Wisconsin. They come very early, and they find what we call a singing grounds. That is an open spot that's either in the woods or side of the woods, and they'll come to the same spot every day at dawn and at dusk. They are called crepuscular, which means that they're active at these various times when they have these periods of low light. And these birds will come to that spot. They will sit there and peent. And peenting is merely a sound. And he'll sit there and make that noise. Then he'll take off and he'll fly in a great big circle, way up in the air, about 300 feet, and he'll dive right back down on that same spot. Well, this, of course, is to attract the females. And they do this at these various periods for about a half an hour every morning and every night. And when a female comes to a singing ground and they'll fly in, the male woodcock will assume the position that this bird is in. I have never seen a published photograph of a woodcock in that position. I've taken a lot of them myself, but I've never seen one. And I thought it's high time other people could see a woodcock in that attitude. So I made one, and they'll put their wings up and they'll just bow around in front of the female, and they'll just be very gracious, but it's fun to watch. Okay, would you like to come up and take a look now? Maybe just first row at one time, and then yeah. This is one of the woodpeckers. This is a flicker. Belongs to the woodpecker family. It probably spends more time on the ground than any of the other woodpeckers because its food is 45% ants. And of course, to find ants, why, the ground is one of the best places for that. From the woodpecker, we'll go over to one of my favorite ducks, which is a widgeon. And I created this one in an image of a feisty bird that is trying to defend his territory. He's trying to tell another widgeon in the vicinity that this is his and he should probably leave. Maybe we should go now to the woodcock. This is one of the latest birds I've done. This is the American woodcock, and the attitude is that of the male when he finds a female on his singing grounds. He will put his wings up and dance and prance in front of her until she becomes receptive, and this is the attitude of the male that people very seldom, if at all, ever see, because this is done when the light is very bad at early dawn and at dusk, and unless you take photographs with lights somehow, it can't even be photographed easily.